Hey there, guys. All right, today we are watching one of I think, one of 2021's, or no, 2022's, I'm forgetting the year, one of 2022's, Halloween specials. Um, I didn't realize this was a Halloween special until I clicked on the video, and then I was like, well, I really want to watch this one. So we're watching it in June and not in October. Um, so, yes, that's what we're doing. Legend summarize the Saga of Grettir. I don't know where this one's from or really what it's about, so it should be fun. Before we dive in, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. I would love it if you joined the Discord and followed me over at Twitch, and also checked out the Kickstarter link. Please, that one's the most important link of them all. Go check it out, please. We have, like, as of recording this, there's like 17 days left of funding. When this video goes up, there's probably like 4 or 5. So please go check it out. Anyways, with all that out of the way, I don't think there's anything else to say except my hair looks fucking atrocious. Let's dive in.
And so the calendar turns once more to my favorite time of year, a time known by many names: autumn, fall, spooky season. Whatever the title, this time is well known for its crisp nighttime breezes, its picturesque cloud-covered moons, and its ghost stories. And while there are many fantastic tales to choose from, today let's talk about an Icelandic saga with many a ghoul and ghost to its name. Today we recount the Saga of Grettir the Strong. Now, for context, while the term saga has been kind of watered down in recent centuries, sagas originally described Icelandic and Scandinavian historical narratives, moderately to severely fictionized and written in prose. They were mostly a Middle Ages thing, intended to describe family histories and events from a few centuries earlier, often from right around the time Iceland was originally settled. Most well-known sagas are family sagas, focusing on genealogical and family history, like a multi-generational biography. Consequently, they are dry as hell. The purpose of these sagas is not to lay out a bold and daring, carefully paced narrative of adventure and glory, it's to document generations of dudes doing stuff. These dudes are
Fuck yeah! I love it when dudes do stuff. Oh, it's my favorite.
typically not heroic bastions of power and chivalry, but just guys. But luckily for us, the saga of
Just dudes being guys and guys being bros, bro.
Grettir
Let's
is
go.
mostly about one dude, especially if we skip over the first and last several chapters that are not about that dude, a luxury I did not have, but one that I will graciously extend to all of you. Practically speaking, the saga of Grettir begins
Good news, dear. It's a protagonist.
with Grettir's birth, which you'd think would be a sensible starting point, but somehow there are 13 chapters before this. Grettir is the second son of one Asmund Longhair and is a textbook problem child. Super strong and very antisocial, with a habit of getting into fights about a whole lot of nothing, Grettir's mom likes him okay, but his dad ain't jazzed about his prospects. Grettir is messing things up.
You will be representing us at the annual Alding, so don't screw this up. Excellent decision. Terrible
Career
decision.
takes a bold leap forward when he's sent to a thing, technical term for a big important meeting, in his father's place on account of being generally useless enough that his presence won't be missed on the family farm. Grettir heads to the thing with a bunch of other guys, but crisis strikes when they wake up one morning to find their horses scattered and their food depleted. A very hangry
That's my food, Skiggy. I don't see your name on it.
Grettir accuses one of his travel companions of theft, who responds to the allegations with an axe, so Grettir kills him. Barely a day
Well, that escalated very quickly.
out from home, and Grettir has committed his first murder. They grow up so fast. Grettir claims the
A troll? Yep. In broad daylight. I'm as surprised as you.
guy was killed by a troll, which the others find dubious at best, and he eventually owns up to
Get out of town. Oh no, my thriving social life.
the murder, earning himself a 3-year banishment. To prep him, Grettir's
This is the yokel snot. Does it have a cool magic destiny? Only nepotism.
mother
Fuck
gives him a
yeah.
sword that belonged to her grandfather, and Grettir sets off on a ship to his future exile, which, spoiler alert, will basically be the entire rest of the story. On the voyage, he
Nice.
proceeds to do absolutely nothing to keep the ship running until one fateful night the ship
How's it going down here? Fantastic, Captain. I would never disappoint a lady in distress.
springs a leak, which Grettir single-handedly and superhumanly rectifies for the sole purpose of impressing a lady, saving the ship until it hits a rock and fully sinks.
Well, I tried. Well, it's got a lot more water in it now.
Anyway, fortunately, they're not too far from an island off the coast of Norway, and a local rich dude named Thorfinn helps out the sailors. The rest of the crew heads south
So, do you want to do some work or? Nah.
out of the story, but Grettir sticks around, mostly because Thorfinn is too nice to kick him out. Grettir spends his days hanging out with the local farmers, being generally unhelpful, until one night he
Oh, the haunted hill is much too dangerous and scary for us to go near. Something interesting? Let me at it.
Notices a huge fire in the distance. He asks a farmer about it, who tells him the flame is the result of a haunting. Thorfinn's deceased father, Kar the Old, haunts his burial mound. Grettir decides this
Well, there's your problem right there.
will not stand and heads to the barrow to dig his way in. He tunnels down into a burial chamber full of riches and the remains of the grave goods Kar was buried with, and then he's attacked by what is presumably whatever's left of Kar the Old. They have a furious wrestling. Then he's attacked by what is burial chamber full of riches and the remains of the grave goods Kar was buried with, and then he's attacked by what is presumably whatever's left of Kar the Old. They have a furious wrestling match that smashes up the entire barrow, and Grettir manages to cut off the monster's head. He digs himself out with the treasure and
Oh, well, he solved that pretty easily.
heads back to Thorfinn to let him know that he killed his dad's ghost and dug up his grave goods, a fact that Thorfinn is shockingly okay with, all things
Isn't that grave robbing? It's kind of, isn't that frowned upon?
considered, and he thanks Grettir for returning his treasure to him. Grettir asks if he can have
Oh, well, at least he gave it. Okay, never mind. That's a nice sword, by the way. I don't think I'm going to reward full-on grave robbing, but thanks.
a cool sword he found in the grave, and Thorfinn says if he wants to make that happen, he'll have to prove himself. Fortunately, Grettir gets his chance in short order, as one day when Thorfinn is out on business, Grettir notices a small ship pull into harbor, and a bunch of dudes pile out, steal Thorfinn's boat, and tell Grettir they're here for revenge.
Thorfinn outlawed us for no reason other than the crimes. That's rough. Wanna go get drunk?
Revenge on Thorfinn, which Grettir cheerfully accepts and happily guides them to the house where he plays model host, getting them blackout drunk and partying with them for hours. Then he guides them to a large wooden outhouse and slams the door, barricading them in. He sprints back to the house
You traitorous snake! Oh yeah, this would be perfect. Mind if I borrow it?
and asks the, at this point, very displeased lady of the house if she has any weapons he can borrow, and she catches on. This whole thing
I've got a dozen drunk, unarmed berserkers locked in the bath. Just something to kill them would be very helpful. Oh yes,
has
fantastic.
been a ploy by Grettir to catch the outlaws off guard. She gears him up in the armor and weapons
I'm lucky you didn't bury him in this stuff. Please try not to break it.
of Kar the Old, and Grettir heads out to fight them. The battle is surprisingly even, since even though Grettir is the only one with armor or weapons, the outlaws are all berserkers and they do outnumber him. But after a long and taxing fight, he manages to kill them. He heads back to the house,
My husband and I will repay your courage. I accept food, naps, and wicked cool swords.
stiff and exhausted, and the lady of the house lavishes him with praise and rewards for saving them, though at this point he just wants a nap and an ice pack. When Thorfinn returns, he of course honors Grettir as highly as he can to thank him for saving his wife and loved ones, and Grettir makes a lifelong ally, as well as getting that shiny sword he wanted.
Nice.
Bonus! Man, this heroism thing is easy! Word of Grettir's valor begins to spread.
Hey, can I? Welcome, stalwart hero.
So by the time he leaves in the spring, he has no trouble finding somewhere else to crash. The seasons turn, Grettir wanders around a bit, fights a giant bear,
What? I am the greatest threat to this majestic species, second only to some kind of catastrophic change in the...
mostly just to spite this guy named Bjorn, wanders around some more. This is going to become
Dude,
a
I love
theme,
wandering
and eventually
around some
crosses
more.
paths with Bjorn again. He demands a fight and threatens to make chicken noises and call Bjorn a weenie if he refuses, so Bjorn accepts and dies. And it turns out murder can have inconvenient consequences because Bjorn's brother Hjörandi demands vengeance for the killing. He even refuses weregilt, literally man price, which is a carefully calculated tally of how much gold you would have to pay as compensation for killing someone. Very efficient, if a bit macabre. Unfortunately for Grettir, Hjörandi has the
I've lost too many men to you. Pay up and get out. I thought I'd been getting jumped more than usual.
local Jarl on his side, who demands Grettir pay up his weregilt and get out of his jurisdiction immediately. So, with his original 3-year exile over, Grettir returns to Iceland, famed and glorified for his many feats of strength. And if this were anything other than an Icelandic saga, this is where we'd end the story. But nope, we gotta watch this hero's journey turn into a train wreck. Grettir's back in Iceland and has picked up a touch of the old hubris, picking fights and relitigating old childhood grievances left and right. He briefly crosses over with another Icelandic saga, the Saga of the Heath Slayings, when he runs into this dude Bardi, who's gathering allies to prepare
He looks so heroic.
for a personal quest for revenge. Grettir is always eager to bust some heads and volunteers, but Bardi's foster
Wouldn't his strength make him a valuable ally and true hero? You'd think that, wouldn't you?
father Thorarin tells him that Grettir is hot-headed and arrogant, and inviting him along would be asking for trouble, so they ditch and go to
Where's
defy
everybody?
their own saga without him. So basically, this bit is Grettir being rejected from the Icelandic equivalent of the Argonauts. Fortunately, Grettir will have plenty more opportunities for hubris-fueled downfalls soon, as there's a ghost story in the making nearby.
Oh,
The
no.
wealthy dude, Thorhall, keeps finding his livestock dead, and concludes that his field is haunted by some kind of monster.
Now, I may not be an expert, but I think the bones are supposed to stay on the outside. I may not be an expert, but I don't think... I'm guessing those are the animal's hooves. I don't think those are supposed to be sticking up in the air like that either.
On the recommendation of a local seer, Thorhall hires this dude Glam, who makes the rookie mistake of smack-talking the Christian god in a post-Christianized narrative, and after spending Yuletide out in the fields rather than fasting like a good boy, he turns up the next morning brutally murdered, having successfully killed the unnamed monster threatening the fields, but immediately taking its place, haunting his impromptu burial grounds, stalking the valley, hammering on rooftops, slaughtering livestock, and driving the locals mad. The region is largely abandoned as Glam terrorizes the area, killing Thorhall's daughter and murdering any livestock unlucky enough to be left behind. Grettir learns about this haunt.
His favorite method of killing is breaking every bone in the body. What a coincidence. Mine too.
And obviously jumps at the chance to punch a ghost again, and despite being warned that this is a very bad idea, Grettir heads to Thorhall's place to
Heard you had a ghost problem. What tipped you off?
Scope out the sitch. The first 2 nights, Glam exercises commendable self-restraint, only brutally murdering Grettir's horse, but on night number 3, Glam tears up the roof and then slips into the hall, now revealed to be hideously distorted and monstrously huge. Grettir launches himself at him, and the ghost wrestling begins.
Let's
the
go.
entire hall is wrecked in the process, and they struggle for a while before Grettir launches Glam through the door, smashing the whole wall to splinters. The wounded Glam stares up at the moon, and with his second dying breath, strikes Grettir with a curse. While he can't take Grettir's tremendous strength away from him, he can do all kinds of other horrible stuff. Glam declares that Grettir will never be stronger than he is right now. It'll be all downhill from here. On top of that, instead of winning fame and glory, his great deeds will all turn sour and foster hatred and rejection for him. Plus, for bonus spice, Glam's nightmarish eyes will haunt him forever, and Grettir's life will become a steady downward spiral of torment and isolation until he eventually dies alone. Grettir manages to shake off his bone
That's really fucked up, dude.
deep terror long enough to cut off Glam's head, winning heroic fame and glorious rewards one final time. But Glam's curse is no joke. Grettir can feel his temper getting worse. He's more impatient and reckless than he was before, and, as a new addition, he's developed a fear of the dark, because in the night, Glam's eyes haunt him. He sees specters and visions that aren't there. The narrator helpfully informs us that this is the etymological root of the word glamour, which is pretty cool, albeit cold comfort for Grettir. Unfortunately, Grettir's downfall begins pretty much immediately. Word on the street is that the new King Olaf is
Olaf the Second Haraldsson wants you.
taking all comers with unique skills to form his own little posse of the Round Table. And obviously this appeals to Grettir, whose ghost punching and super strength would make valuable assets to any king. Grettir starts making his way to the court of King Olaf, but it's winter in Scandinavia, so it's cold and miserable. And after fording an icy river to get fire, he breaks into a house and, in his iced-over state, is mistaken for a troll. In the ensuing scuffle, while Grettir escapes pretty quickly with the fire he wanted, the house burns down with everyone inside. Among them are unfortunately the 2 sons of this dude Thorir, who is the kind of well-respected pillar of the community that makes people really upset with whoever accidentally murders his kids. So word of Grettir's clumsy manslaughtering spreads like wildfire, overtaking all his previous ghost-punching goodwill. Grettir's arrival at King Olaf
I can accept you into my service on account of how you just literally punched a child. I punch a lot of things. He's not special. Damn right. Punch children.
Olaf's court doesn't help,
No.
as Grettir's temper sabotages his attempt to clear his name, and he's deemed far too much of a liability for the king to take into his service. Grettir leaves, and despite a few more heroic victories, forces begin moving against him. The terrible forces of the consequences of his own actions. See, on the way
I
to
hate
King
those.
Olaf's, Grettir casually killed this rude dude, Torbjorn Slowcoach, for making fun of him, and this really upset Torbjorn Slowcoach's brother, Torbjorn Oxmane. I swear, this book is like 50% legal battles, 40% dudes named Thor something, 10% ghost punching. Anyway, Torbjorn Oxmane wants revenge on Grettir and
Vengeance is mine. I'm sorry, who are you?
his family, and after a few scuffles, he manages to kill Grettir's brother Atli back at the family farm. Meanwhile, at that year's
If anyone thinks Grettir shouldn't be punished for heartlessly slaughtering my children, now's the time to fess up.
All thing, Thorir petitions to have Grettir exiled to be an outlaw again to pay for the death of his sons, which is a bit unkosher because Grettir isn't even there to defend himself, but the sentence passes and Grettir is exiled in absentia. Grettir learns this when he returns to Iceland, where he finds his father and brother dead, his mother facing potential eviction, and a price on his head. Regardless, he promises his mother he'll help balance the scales, but killing Torbjorn Oxmane, while satisfying,
Oopsies. That's a crime. Oh, come on.
doesn't help with his outlaw situation. With his brother avenged and the price on his head only getting higher, Grettir bids his mother farewell and enters the part of the saga I affectionately refer to as the Great Couch Surf. Grettir spends the next 20 chapters bouncing from place to place,
20. Oh my god.
Sometimes relying on the hospitality of the friends he made before being outlawed, sometimes getting taken in by kind strangers, sometimes just camping out in the wilderness. He does assorted acts of banditry and winds up with the biggest bounty in history on his head because that Thorir guy just hates him so
Nice.
much. Anyway, a few cool things happen during the Great Couch Surf. Thorir starts sending full-on paid assassins after Grettir, who bounces between an assortment of fun bandit lairs like a cabin he builds himself, a very defensible cave in a mountain, and a glacier-lined valley ruled by a friendly giant, confusingly also named Thorir, that's straight up idyllic. It's kept magically temperate
How's the fishing? I've never gone this long without punching anything before. Punch the fish.
year-round by a volcanic hot spring. It's absolutely full of sheep. Thorir has a bunch of daughters Grettir gets along with. The valley's completely hidden and nobody
Snoo. Fuck the giant women.
attacks him the whole time he's there. And then, and this is not a joke, he gets bored and leaves.
Dude, I'd never leave. I'd never leave that place. Seemed like paradise.
Sorry, Grettir, but from this point forward, I officially have no sympathy for you. Grettir
Yeah,
starts
I
traveling
agree.
in disguise, so Thorir, the dude, not the giant, won't send more assassins after him. And it's under these circumstances that he hears about another fun monster-slaying opportunity. An estate currently belonging to this lady Steinvor has been attacked 2 Yuletides in a row by some sort of troll that carried off her husband and later a servant. Grettir offers to help out and house sit while she goes to Yuletide Mass, and he even carries her and her daughter across the icy river so they can get to church on time. Then he heads back to the estate just in time for a huge troll woman to show up. They have a classic Grettir-style fight that smashes up the whole building, and Grettir manages to slice off her arm before she can pull him into the river. Very Beowulf of him. She books him into the waterfall, and when Grettir dives in, he finds a monstrous giant, not the
Wrong cave.
troll lady, which is a little confusing, but long story short, he kills it, retrieves a bunch of treasure,
Wait. Did he kill the wrong guy?
along with the bones of the 2 dead guys, and heads back. Grettir, having officially exorcised the area by force, spends the winter in peace until Thorir catches wind of his location and goes back to sending assassins. Grettir is directed to maybe try camping out on the island of Drangi, which is extremely defensible due to being surrounded on all sides by cliffs and only being accessible by a single ladder. The problem is Grettir is still haunted by Glam's eyes, which make it very unpleasant for him to spend the nights alone, so even if he does camp out on Drangi, he'll need some company. The solution comes when he briefly returns home to visit his mother, and his young brother Illugi, now 15, volunteers to join him in exile to keep him company. Grettir is very grateful, and their mother cheerfully sends them on their way with some pocket money and a prophecy of shared doom. Uh-oh. They head north to Drangi, picking up a dude called Glaum along the way, and reach the island pretty easily. There's just one problem.
Can we have our stuff? If you can pry it from my cold, dead hands.
Drangi, while uninhabited, is co-owned by about 20 different people, and they all hate each other, but not as much as they now hate Grettir for taking their island and all the stuff on it. The responsibility for getting rid of Grettir is claimed by one Torbjorn Angle, whose plan for dealing with Grettir seems to boil down to asking him nicely to
Please, I'll get so many shares in the island. I'm gonna find a cow with your name on it and eat it whole.
leave. This predictably does not work. Meanwhile, more super fun legal battles happen, and the crew at the Althing decree that Grettir can only be in exile for 1 more year, so Torbjorn Angle now officially has a deadline on when he has to kill Grettir, or he'll lose his shares of the island. So in desperation, he goes to his foster mother Thurid for help, who is conveniently a deviously evil
You need mommy to slay your enemies for you.
witch with a sorcerous scheme to destroy Grettir. When Torbjorn goes back for about round 6 of
You're in for a bad time, sonny boy.
asking Grettir nicely to leave, Thurid comes along and throws a quick curse Grettir's way, which he takes very well by Grettir standards and only responds by chucking a huge rock at her and breaking her leg. That's okay. Her vengeance is already in the works. She finds a huge tree trunk
Kids these days have no respect for dark wizardry.
and sorcels it with bloody runes and has the lads shove it into the sea, at which point it beelines for Drangi and floats invitingly around the island, looking like oh so tempting firewood. Grettir knows better than to use the extremely suspicious firewood and keeps shoving it back out to sea, but Glaum, remember Glaum, this is the only reason he's important, doesn't realize the danger and uses it for firewood, and when Grettir goes out to chop up said firewood, the axe bounces off the cursed log and severely injures his knee. The injury is both physically nasty and magically cursed, and Grettir becomes weaker and weaker, and Torbjorn takes this chance to wrangle up a posse and storm the island. Glaum then does his second and final important contribution to the plot by forgetting to raise the one ladder that keeps the bad guys from invading the island, and sure enough, Torbjorn and co swarm the place. Grettir's
Come
brother
on.
Illugi fights so valiantly that Torbjorn and friends can't help but compliment him at every turn, but when they finally reach Grettir, they find that he's actually already dead. His injury got him before they could. Torbjorn takes his head to claim
Killing my brother with evil sorcery means I will spend my life hunting you. Well, I appreciate your frankness. Now die.
his bounty, which everyone thinks is rather gauche, and amicably negotiates with Illugi about killing him now to forestall another tedious revenge plotline. But uh-oh, Thorir catches
I hear Grettir was killed by witchcraft. You're being picky.
Into the fact that Grettir was killed by evil sorcery, and that means he doesn't want to pay the bounty he was promised. Be still my heart. Is it time for another legal dispute? No! We are not doing this! The saga of Grettir is over! Sure, there's a follow-up where his half-brother Thorstein Drummond avenges him, but we're good, alright? We're good!
You better tell the story of Thorstein Drummond of Tunsberg in Norway who avenged Grettir in Constantinople AD 1033.
Good. We don't need another edition of Torvald Asgeir Ace Attorney. As his story comes to a close, let's just celebrate the life of Grettir the Strong. Warrior, outlaw, ghost puncher, and by far his own worst enemy.
This video was took me 2 years. It took for 2 years to get that. Icelandic sagas are technically extremely interesting in that they contain a large amount of very valuable historical and cultural information and originate a lot of interesting tropes, but unfortunately, practically they are very boring. Turns out the average lifetime involves a lot more faffing about than the epics would have you believe. To be fair, it was nearly 1,000 years ago, as pacing hadn't been invented. There's an adage I've heard when it comes to writing: is this the most interesting part of your character's life? And if not, why aren't we telling that story instead? Icelandic sagas handily solve that problem by giving you their whole entire life and leaving you to find the good bits. And that was Legend Summarized, the Saga of Grettir. This was fun. This was a good time. This actually didn't really feel very much like a. I mean, there were Halloween vibes to it because of the witchcraft, the ghost punching. But outside of that, overall, the story did not feel like a Halloween story. So I feel like it fits watching it at this time of the year. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.